بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه كما يحب ربنا ويرضى. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله الناصح الأمين. اللهم صل على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين. ثم أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, we continue going over the tremendous book by the Allama Fadilat Sheikh Salih Al-Fawzan Hafidhahullah Ta'ala. That book which is entitled Tanbihat ala Ahkam Takhtassu bil Mu'minat. That is attention to some rules and regulations particular to the believing women. Alhamdulillah, in the last class we had went over those rules and those regulations as relates to women cutting their hair and the issues that are surrounding that particular topic. Walillah alhamd, we are still dealing with the hair of the women, meaning that hair that is on top of their heads, as relates to rules and regulations. And in today's class, bidnillahi ta'ala, what we want to cover are some of those rules and regulations as relates to a particular set of hairstyles that share in their characteristic, or they have a shared characteristic, we can say. But before that, the Shaykh, he mentions, he says, فَعَلَى الْمَرْأَةِ أَن تَحْتَفِظَ بِشَعْرِ رَأْسِهَا وَتَعْتَنِي بِهِ. He says is that the woman, she has to take care of her hair. She has to preserve her hair. Naam, she has to preserve her hair. تحتفظ, she has to preserve it and take care of it. And she has to pay attention to it, give concern unto her hair. This is very important, and that is from the various means and ways and types in which an individual, they would take care of their hair. وَتَجْعَلُ ضَفَائِرْ, and she could put her hair inside of braids. She can put her hair inside of braids. And this is a very important point, or this is something which draws to mind, because one of the sisters had mentioned that due to the texture of the hair of certain women, they felt that the last class didn't necessarily address all women and all hair types. Now, and I don't want anyone to ever feel alienated as relates to any of these classes that are dealing with the beautification and the like as relates to the women. I don't want anyone to ever feel alienated as relates to these matters. So as a reminder, it is important to know that there are always going to be certain topics that may be applicable to this one and not that one. Now, and that is because in the last class, it was spoken about the women cutting their hair and the hair that it flows or it falls down, right? So a lot of the discussion was speaking about women who have this texture of hair that the hair it falls down. However, as relates to cutting it, then this is something that is particular to all of them. It's particular to all of them. Now, that the generality is that they should not cut it. They should let it grow. They should let it grow. But as we know, not all hair types grow down. Some hair types are types of hair and textures of hair that have a lot of body. And these are textures of hair that are thick. And textures of hair that will grow up and out and not necessarily fall down. Right? So, as relates to some of the discussion, when the hair is left like this, where it's combed out, or what the case may be, then of course it will grow up and so on and so forth. But there still is a crossover as relates to the hair coming down, and that will be if they were to braid their hair. If they were to braid their hair, then of course the hair will fall down, right? In any event, we have to look and we have to gain the benefit of those areas that are applicable to us, and those things that are not applicable to us, then alhamdulillah, we learn the benefits as relates to that, and we understand the issue as relates to that. But we understand that what is not applicable to us as individuals. Now, because the hair is of different types and of different lengths, and not everyone has been given the same type and the same length. Just like the beards for the brothers, not every brother has a exceedingly long beard. Some of the beards are longer than other beards. And the texture of the hair, some is more curlier, some is more straighter, some is in the middle, so on and so forth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to each and every individual that which is has been given to them. But it's important for us to understand that no one should ever feel at a disadvantage, or no one should ever be made to feel that one is better than the other, because there's good in all of it. There is good in all of it. There's beauty in all of it. It is like flowers. You have flowers of different types. Flowers of different, have different characteristics and so on and so forth. But there's beauty in all of them. But the beauty of this flower may be different from the beauty of that flower, because the characteristics are different. However, they're both beautiful. They're both beautiful in their way. And likewise, as relates to the hair, the textures, and so on and so forth, each is beautiful in its own way. And it's not befitting to try to compare the beauty of this to the beauty of that. They're all beautiful. It's like comparing the beauty of one flower to another flower. You can't compare the beauty. They're both beautiful in their own way, and you really can't compare them. So, it is important that this is mentioned, because again, we don't want the sisters to feel as if they are being alienated, or we don't want to put more pressure upon the women, and we don't want to reinforce the mentality that has been projected by the kuffar, and making the women think that a standard of beauty is restricted to a particular people's beauty. That what is beautiful is the beauty that these people, their characteristics are upon, and that is not correct, because as mentioned, every race of people, they have beauty with them, and they are beautiful, even though this beauty may be different from the beauty of another race, but there's beauty in all of it. Now, there's beauty in all of it. So Allah Ta'ala, He has bestowed and blessed all of us with our characteristics, and the qadr of Allah is good. Now, the qadr of Allah is good. So, with that being said, for those women who their hair, it may grow up, right, and it may have a lot of body to it and very curly and so on and so forth, then of course, as relates to the length of the hair and so on and so forth, then this will not enter into what was spoken about last time. But again, they should avoid from cutting it. They should avoid from cutting the hair and let it grow as long as possible. But what would enter into that discussion, right, will be what? Will be if they were to braid their hair. If they were to braid their hair, then their hair, it will fall. And when that hair, it falls, then what was mentioned about length and so on and so forth, it will enter into it. Ala kulli hal, it is important for the women to strive their best to take care of their hair, whatever length it may be and whatever texture it may be. And from the ways in which to take care of the hair and to have a concern for their hair, right, and to beautify themselves by way of their hair, and combing it different ways and so on and so forth, is that they can put it in braids. They can put it in braids. And there's certain textures of hair that the hair braids, they encourage the growth of the hair and the health of the hair, right? And there are different styles of braids that are very beautiful. So it's important that the women, they beautify themselves with this, and it's not for them to think that the only way of managing one's hair is to leave it out and try to get it to lay down and all this type of stuff. No, if your hair doesn't lay down, then why are you stressing yourself out like that? Yeah, it's beauty in the way that your hair goes up and the curly and whatever. Yeah, so from that is the braids, right? But it is important, and it comes to issue as relates to the braids and relates to bringing the hair together, that is very important that all of the women need to think about, because regardless of the hair type, something from this is appropriate for both, right? Regardless of the hair type, then of course something from this is appropriate for both, and that is what? لا يجوز لها جمعه فوق رأس أو من ناحية القفاء, is that it's not permissible for the women to gather their hair together on top of their head, to gather their hair together on top of their head, or to gather it together from the back, that they gather it together from the back. And this is the hairstyle that is referred to ما يسمونه بوضع الكعكة. نعم, بوضع الكعكة. والكعكة, for lack of a better term, or I think the best translation for الكعكة, then this will be a bun, right? Because in the Arabic language, right, ka'k, this means cake, and likewise ka'ka, you can utilize both of these words for cake, like a pastry cake. We know what cake is, right? But and we know cake is of different types, different styles of cake or what have you. So when it's mentioned al-ka'ka, ما يسمونه بوضع الكعكة, then the best way to translate it is like a bun, right? And of course the women, they are more versed with regards to the names of the hairstyles than I am. So, but I think they will understand this terminology, and that is to bring the hair together in like a bun, right? وقال شيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية في المجموع الفتاوى, شيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية mentions in مجموع الفتاوى كما يقصد بعد البغايا. نعم, he said just like that which is intended by some of the بغايا. بغايا, this is the jama', this is the plural of baghiya, and the baghiya, then this is a woman who is nasty. This is a woman who is nasty. Now, like a lewd woman, right? A lewd woman, you would say that a lewd woman is baghiya, right? And so on and so forth. A woman of very low moral standard, and that you would say about this one, she is baghiya. So the jama' is baghaya, that these lewd women. Some of the lewd women, this was a hairstyle that was particular unto them, and that was an تضفر شعرها ضفيرا واحدا مسدولا بين كفتين أو كتفين نعم مسدولا بين الكتفين, is that they would bring the hair together in one, you understand from this, ضفيرا, in one braid or in one bun, right? They put the hair together and they intertwine it or interlock it in such a manner that it stays together. Because of course, if a person just brought the hair together and put it together, it just wouldn't stay like that. But they will have to do some type of interlocking or intertwining to get the hair to stay together, okay, to coalesce like this. Now, so the Shaykh is mentioning that they bring it together in an interlocked or intertwined way or what have you, and then it falls between their shoulder blades. It falls between the back, from their shoulders. That this also enters into that. Now, so this is something that the women need to be mindful of, regardless of the hair texture and type. We need to be mindful of this type of hairstyle, and that is again what could be called like a bun, right? A bun, where the hair is gathered either at the back of the head, right, is gathered together and is placed in such a way, and of course depending upon the length of that hair, then that bun, it may, or the hair from it, what have you, it may fall down between their shoulder blades. Okay, this type of hairstyle is not permissible. It's not permissible to gather the hair in this manner. And inshallah ta'ala, we'll come back and we'll look more at these particular types of styles. But right now it's important that we know its ruling. And its ruling is that it is not permissible. It's not permissible to gather the hair together in a bun, whether that bun is on the back of the head or on top of the head and the like. And then we're going to see why. وقال الشيخ محمد بن إبراهيم المفتي دار السعودية, and Sheikh Muhammad bin Ibrahim, who was the former mufti of Saudiya, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, وَأَمَّا يَفْعَلُهُ بعض النساء المسلمين في هذا الزمن, he said, and what some of the Muslim women they do in this time, what some of the Muslim women they do in this time that we live in right now, they do in this time, in this era, من فرق الشعر الرأس من جانب وجمعه من ناحية القفاء أو جعله فوق الرأس كما تفعله النساء الإفرانج فهذا لا يجوز. He says, and that is what some of the women they do right now, and that is to getting the hair together, right? The putting of the hair together to one side or another side, or they put it together, they put it together from on top of the head. They bring it together on top of the head, right? I mean, we know, sisters, how they would put the hair together, and then they put it in a bun or a ball or a puff, and it's gathered, and that puff is on top of the head. That ball or whatever is on top of the head, right? Or they do that, and that puff or that ball is in the back of the head. The Shaykh said this is not permissible because this is that which the women of the kuffar they do. This is that which the disbelieving the women they do, and this is what is meant by nisa al-ifranj. Now, this is referring to the disbelieving women. That this type of style is something that was particular unto them, right? And then it's something that the Muslims they copied, but it was something that originated. It was from the kuffar, and it was a style that was particular to the kuffar. So we see that this, from one standpoint, is not permissible because what? Because it's imitation of the kuffar. Because the Shaykh he mentions, he says, فَهَذَا لَا يَجُوزُ لِمَا فِيهِ مِنَ التَّشَبُّهِ بِالنِّسَاءِ الْكُفَّارِ, that this is not permissible because of the imitation that is consist therein of imitating the disbelieving women. Of imitating the disbelieving women. Now, so you had some kuffar, and especially, for example, like those kuffar of Europe, right? And this was a hairstyle that was popular, in those times. and still to this day is popular in different variations. But if you go back to a certain time period, right, and you think back, especially the early part of last century and the latter part of the century before that, even before that, especially inside of the royal courts and things like this, the women, they would put their hair in these big buns that sat on top of their head. So regardless of the texture, right, they would put it together in this bun and it sat on top of their head and maybe layer it, and I don't know the different ways that the women they do what they do to make it stand up like that and all big and stuff. And this was very popular, especially in Europe. But this was something that emanated and originated from them, right? And it came from them, and it was popular with them. You understand? So from this standpoint, of course it will be haram. Why? Because it's imitation of the kuffar. That's one. Because we find this is not the only reason that is haram. And this is very important for us to understand this, is that sometimes when things are haram, they are haram from different, or for different reasons, meaning for more than one reason. It's not just one thing and that's it. One thing is enough. But you have certain things that are haram because of multiple things, multiple reasons, which points to the fact that this thing is haram. So this type of hairstyle of putting the hair in a bun, is haram. One, from the standpoint that is imitation of the kuffar. Also, we have a hadith that has been collected by Imam Muslim, and that is the hadith an Abi Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. في الحديث طويل. Shaykh Fawzani says it comes inside of a hadith that is very long. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, but the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he said, صنفان من أهل النار. He said there are two types of people from the people of the fire. There are two types of people from the people of the fire. لم أراهما, I did not see them. There are two types of people from the people of the fire who I have yet to see. لم أراهما, I have yet to see them. قوم معهم سياط كأذناب البقر. There are people who they have with them whips. They have with them whips, and these whips are like the tails of the cows. They have with them whips, and these whips are like the tails of cows. يضربون بها الناس, and they beat the people with them. They beat the people with these whips. Right? There's a quick side point that I want to mention that Imam bin Baz rahmatullah alayhi, he mentions, and it is very, very, very important point. And that is the Imam rahmatullah alayhi, he says that these individuals, they are beating the people without right. And one of the things we benefit from this hadith, that maybe a lot of people, when they read this hadith, they don't pick up on this benefit, but something I want to point out because it's of extreme importance and benefit for us, is that the Shaykh, he says, هذا الحديث في الصحيح, that this hadith is a hadith that is authentic, right? It is authentic. It comes inside of the collection of authentic hadith. He says, فيه تحذير من ظلم الناس بغير الحق. He said, in it there is a warning from oppressing the people without right. In it is a warning from oppressing the people without right. And that's something, that's a universal warning, that it is not permissible for us to oppress people. It's not permissible for us to oppress people whatsoever. It's not permissible for us to oppress people and the like. The Shaykh, he says, وَلِهَذَا ذَمَّ هَؤُلَاءِ الَّذِينَ بِأَيْدِيهِمْ سِيَاطٌ يَضْرِبُونَ النَّاسِ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ. He says, and in this we see the dispraise and condemnation of those individuals who had inside of their hands these whips, and they were beating the people without right. The Shaykh, he says, the Imam bin Baz, he says, سَوَاءٌ كَانُوا شَرْطَةً أَوْ غَيْرِهِمْ. He said, regardless on whether this was done at the hands of the police or other than them. Regardless on whether this was done by the police or other than them. And then the Shaykh goes on to mention some very important points that beating the people, there has to be a reason, a cause, there has to be a proof for way in which the people are beaten, and that even the law enforcement agents, right, they are there to enforce the laws. He says, so for example, if the ruler, they have issued a decree that certain crimes, so as to deter people from committing those crimes, that certain crimes, if the police see you doing it, then they have the permission to beat the people, and so on and so forth, right? So as a deterrent from these crimes, then they have right to do so in that instance. You understand? However, if they have not been given the permission by the ruler, or there is no permission for them inside of the shara', inside of the legislation, to whip it in this regard, because even with that, then the rule for the implementation of the hudud, then it comes from who? It comes from the ruler. It comes from the ruler. So the ruler has says, yes, we're going to beat people due to these crimes or what have you, then they have the right to do that. But even the law enforcement agent himself, if he has not been given the authority to use physical force in this situation, it's not for him to do it. And if he were to do it, or if she were to do it, then this would be what? Then this would be oppression, because they have not been given a license to put their hands on the people in these instances. So the Shaykh, he mentions that this is something that we gain from this hadith, that hitting people and striking them, regardless of what the tool is by way in which an individual used to strike or to hit somebody, that is not permissible without right. It's not permissible just to hit somebody like that without rights. You have no license to do so. It's not permissible. And that this is from the oppression, and this is from what it means to oppress the people. Ala kulli hal, inside of this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he goes on to mention that this is the first type of people from the fire that he didn't see. These individuals who they have whips inside of their hands, and they beating the people without rights. They beating the people with these whips that they have in their hands that are like the tails of the cows. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he goes on and he says, وَالنِّسَاء كَاسِيَاتِ عَارِيَاتِ مَائِلَاتِ مميلات رؤوسهن كأصنمة البخت لا يدخلن الجنة ولا يجدن ريحها وإن ريحها لا يوجد من مسيرة كذا وكذا. He says, he says that, and also there are women who, and I want you to pay attention to these characteristics, and it's a hadith that we mentioned in the last series, in the last classes, and that is what? Women who they are clothed yet naked. They are naked although they have clothes on. And we mentioned that this is the ulama, they mentioned, and the reason is because either the clothes are so thin and so sheer that you can see what's under it, or they're so tight that it describes in perfect detail that which is under it, like yoga pants and so on and so forth. These things leave nothing for the imagination. So to wear such outside, a'udhu billah, she's naked, even though she has a physical piece of cloth over her, it's not sufficient, right? So they're clothed but naked. Or that is so short that it really doesn't cover much. So although she can say there's a cloth there, the cloth is short and it's exposing that which should be hidden. So this is what is meant by they are clothed but they are naked. Naked yet although they have clothes on. These type of women, then they are from those individuals whom the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that they will not enter into Jannah nor smell its fragrance. These ones are ma'ilat, mumilat. They are ones who they themselves are inclined to evil, and they incline others towards evil. As we can say, for lack of a better term, what they're head turners. They are inclined to evil, and they induce and they seduce others and make others incline to evil. And listen to these women, because remember, Shaykh al-Islam, he mentioned that from the evil women. Remember, Shaykh al-Islam, he mentioned that from the evil women, al-baghaya, from those lewd, nasty women, the lewd, nasty women. Like, what is the characteristics of these evil women? These women who are clothed yet naked, right? The women who are inclined to evil and they make others inclined to evil. Is that what their hair? It says their heads, but what's meant what their hair is like asnamat al-bukht, is like the humps of the camel. Naam, asnamat al-bukht al-ma'ila. It is like the camel humps that lean. Because it's like the camel humps that lean to one side. You know, there's a certain type of camel that they hump, it leans over, right? It leans to one side. That this is how their hairstyle is. It's like a hump and it leans to one side. And this is characteristic of what? Of these nasty, filthy, despicable, lowly women. This is how they wear their hair. This is how they wear their hair, right? The Prophet ﷺ, he said, they will not enter into Jannah, nor will they smell, or nor will they reach them the fragrance of Jannah. They won't enter into Jannah, nor will they reach them, nor will they find its fragrance, even though the fragrance of Jannah could be found from such and such a distance, from a long distance. Na'am. Rawahu Muslim. Hadith Rawahu Muslim. The ulama, they mention, and from them Shaykh bin Baz and others, they mention that what is meant by ma'ilat, mumilat, means that they are inclined to evil and they incline others towards evil. This is what is meant by it. That they are inclined to evil and that they also incline others to evil. Others from the ulama, they mention, وَقَدْ فَسَرَ بَعْضُ الْعُلَمَاء, some of the ulama, they mention قَوْلُهُ مَائِلَاتِ مُمِيلَاتِ, that it's inclining and inclines others towards it. They said بِأَنَّهُنْ, because these particular type of women يَتَمَشَّطْنَ بِمِشْطَ مِيلَةٍ, is that they do their hair in a hairstyle that leans. Right? Some of the ulama say what is meant by ma'ilat, mumilat, that they incline and have others incline to them, is because they do their hair in a type of hairstyle that leans. He said, وَهِيَ مِشْطَطِ الْبَغَايَا, and this is the hairstyle of these nasty, filthy, despicable, lowly women, of these loose, floozy women. Naam, is that they wear their hair in a way that their hair, it leans. It leans. The Shaykh, he says, وَيَمْشَطُنَا بِغَيْرِهِنْ تِلْكَ مِشْطَى. He said, and also, other than these particular floozy, lowly type of women, also wear this hairstyle. Right? Because a person may come and try to say, oh, but you have this woman, she has that hairstyle, and she's not a baghiya, she's not a filthy, despicable, prostitute type of woman, and she wear her hair like that. So the Shaykh, he says, and others also wear this hairstyle. And other women, they also wear this hairstyle. Who are these women who wear this hairstyle? The Shaykh, he says, هذه مشطة نساء الإفراج, that this is the hairstyle of the disbelieving women. Right? And again, this is still the speech of the Mufti Muhammad bin Ibrahim al-Shaykh rahimahullah ta'ala. This is still the speech of the Mufti Muhammad bin Ibrahim rahmatullah alayhi. So he mentions that also the disbelieving women, they wear this hairstyle. وَمَنْ يَحُضُّ حَضُوَهُنْ min nisa al-muslimin, and also those Muslim women who have followed suit and they have followed the example of these women, that they also wear their hair like this. You understand? So again, we have this hadith here, which is a clear indication that these women, they will have hairstyles that are lumped together like the humps of the camels that lean to one side. And you have from the ulama those who say that what is meant by inclining and leaning towards, then this means that because of the hairstyle that they will have. You also have the description of the Prophet ﷺ, where he mentions that their hair رؤوسهن كأصنامة البخت المائلة, that their hair is like the humps of camels that lean. It's like the humps of camels that lean over. Okay. And this is the description of these nasty, floozy, prostitute type of women who are clothed yet naked. Because what is the benefit of having one's hair all big and puffy together like that? What is the benefit? Is that it attracts the eye. It attracts the eye. Now, especially for those women who are shorter in their stature, by putting their hair high like that, it makes it easier for them to be seen, even in a crowd. Even in a crowd, make it easier for them to be seen. So they do this, why? Because they're trying to be provocative. They're trying to draw eyes to them. They're trying to draw attention unto themselves. You understand? And this is the characteristic of these women, which goes back to what? To the other understanding, as the ulama, they explain what is meant by ma'ilat, mumilat, that they are inclined to evil and they attract others and make others inclined towards evil. You understand? Eye-catching, so on and so forth. Now, so all of this enters into their emotion, how they are, these filthy women. They want to bring attention to themselves and so on and so forth. This hairstyle aids and assists in that evil agenda. It aids and assists inside of that evil agenda. So it's that which we have to be cautioned from, and that which we have to stay away from in totality. Now, which brings us back now to the issue of this hairstyle. The hairstyle, this bun type of hairstyle. And that is that which it has to be avoided. It has to be avoided. So a question that they asked Shaykh bin Baz, rahmatullah alayhi, they asked him, what is the ما حكم وضع الشعر? What is the ruling on putting the hair, right, or the hairstyle, بالطريقة المائلة to put the hairstyle in such a way that it leans. That it leans. The Shaykh, he mentions, and this is a suggestion for some of the sisters. This is a suggestion for some of the sisters. And the reason, let's do this first before mentioning that. Shaykh Uthaymeen, he mentions, because in general, to have such a hairstyle and to go outside with it, it's not permissible. You with me? It's not permissible. But then the question may come across to the sisters, well, what if you just put your hair together because, for example, you were doing work, right? You were doing work, and maybe it was hot, you start sweating, and your hair is sticking to you and the like, where it's feeling uncomfortable, so you just want to gather it up off of you, right? You want to gather it up off of you, okay? Or for whatever reason may move you to want to gather your hair so that it's away from you, right? So it's off of your neck or whatever the case may be, right? So then what do you do then? Because the sister may ask, will this fall into it? If I was doing a lot of work or whatever, and or for whatever reason that may call to necessitate such, so you mean to tell me I can't put my hair together? I can't put it together? Is that what you're saying? So Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahmatullah alayhi, he mentions that if a woman were to gather her hair together, for example, because she was doing work or what have you, so she wants to put it up and to get it away from her, then it's permissible for her to do it as long as she's inside of the house. It's permissible for her to do it as long as she's inside of the house, and she can do it, right? But she shouldn't go outside like that. And we'll come back to this point, inshallah ta'ala. We'll come back to this point about her going outside with her hair still like this. But he said that if she were to bring it up together like this because she was working or whatever, and she wanted to get it out of her way, then this is okay. This is okay. La ba'as bihi. This is okay. Now, but she can't go outside like that. And like I said, we'll come back to that. So Shaykh bin Baz, rahmatullah alayhi, he gives an example, a suggestion of a manner that the women can do this to get the hair off of them that will be away from the description that is prohibited. That will be away from the description that is prohibited. So Imam bin Baz, he says, and again, this is a suggestion for the sisters. Now, he says, al-afdal, he said, was better, fima a'lam, according to what I know. He said, what's best according to what I know, أن تكون الفرقة في الوسط الرأس حذاء الأنف لا تميل هكذا ولا هكذا. He said, then what is better is that if she were to make a part in the middle of her head, that a part that would be on top of her nose, or like in by the nose, the part in the middle. You understand? The part in the middle of the head. She parts her hair in the middle. and then she can gather her hair together on either side to where it is not leaning here or leaning there. It's not leaning to this side nor leaning to that side. That makes sense? This is a suggestion that Imam bin Baz he mentions as relates to that. So this could be an option for those sisters who they're working and they're doing something, whatever, and they want to get their hair out the way, or whatever the case may be. Whatever the case may be, they want to put their hair up like that in the house. For a reason that points to that, because maybe the husbands they like how this looks upon their wife, and so on and so forth, right? As this is a hairstyle that can be attractive, on certain people or whatever. They may look good like that, so the husband, he likes that hairstyle, so they want to put it like that for the husband inside the house, and so on and so forth. Then no problem, right? And we see this from another standpoint, in that the Shaykh, he was asked, Shaykh Uthaymeen, he was asked, ما حكم تجميع المرأة لشعرها فوق الرأس أو ما يسمونه بوضع الكعكة. He said, what is the ruling of a woman putting her hair together on top of her head, and that which they call al-ka'ka? And remember again, al-ka'ka, that's what? Bun, for lack of a better term and or translation, like a bun. Okay? The Shaykh, he mentions, Shaykh Uthaymeen, he says, الشعر إذا كان على الرأس على الفوق فإن هذا عند أهل العلم داخل في النهي والتحذير. He says, if they're putting the hair together, bringing it together in this bun, or this puff, or whatever the proper term it is for this type of hairstyle, he said, if it's on top of the head, okay, he said, then this with the people of knowledge, it enters into the prohibition. And it enters into the warning, الَّذِي جَاءَ عَنِ النَّبِي صلى الله عليه وسلم, that warning that has come on the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم inside of the hadith, صَنْفَانِ مِنْ أَهْلِ النَّارِ لَمْ أَرَاهُمَا, that there are two types of people from the people of the fire who I have yet to see them. وذكر في الحديث, and is mentioned inside of the hadith, نساء كاسيات عاريات مائلات مميلات رؤوسهن يعني كأصنامة البخت المائلة. And is mentioned inside of the hadith, the women who they are clothed yet naked, they incline towards evil and incline others towards evil, have others incline towards evil. Their heads, and remember, what's meant by heads, it means their hair. It means their hair is like the humps of the bukht camel. It's like the humps of a camel that leans. The humps of a camel that leans. He says, so if it is on top of a head, فَإِذَا كَانَ الشَّعْرُ الْفَوْقِ فَفِيهِ نَهِي, that if this bun is on top of the head, then this is what has in it the prohibition. If the bun is on top of the head, then this is what has in it the prohibition. You with me? Like putting the bun on top of the head, or gathering in a puff or whatever on top of the head, it's not permissible. Okay? It's not permissible. He says, أما إذا كان على رقبة مثلا, he said, but if it is upon the raqaba, if it is upon the neck, for example, right? He says, فهذا لا بأس به, then this is okay. If she puts her head together, right? Like how you put your hair in a ponytail or whatever, you gather it together like this, and then she brings it together, and it's like a big piece of hair, whatever, on the neck. On the neck. And there's various styles by manner that the women, they can do this, right? There's even a style of braiding, and again, all of these things, you sisters are more knowledgeable than me as relates to these things and the details and reality of these things. But you know better than me, there's a style of braiding where the women, they will braid their hair with braids that are directional towards the back, right? And then the excess hair or whatever, they will put it together and it will coalesce inside of some kind of big, I don't know, bun, I guess for lack of a better term, or a ball or what, I don't know, whatever. But they can do that, and then there's this big portion of hair or gathering of hair. It's like on top of the neck, right? It's like on top of the neck. The Shaykh, he says, if they did it like this, then no problem. They brought their hair together, and then it's like a ponytail. They may take a ponytail and wrap it up or whatever, you know, and then it's like a big ball, and it sits on the neck or what have you. Shaykh, he says, no problem. All other ways and descriptions which the sisters, they know that is done, that will produce this type of ball or this type of puffy bun or whatever type of description, right? You sisters know best what would do that. The Shaykh, he says, if this is done, then there's no problem. But what we understand from the Shaykh is that if this is done inside of the house, if this is done inside of the house, no problem, right? Remember in the other fatwa, the Shaykh, he mentions that if the woman is working, for example, and she wants to get it out of her way and she puts it, in this type of manner, then okay. Again, not on top of the head, no, but if it's on the neck or whatever, then okay. But that's what, if she's in the house. The Shaykh, he says, فَلَا بَأْسْ بِهِ إِلَّا إِذَا كَانَتْ الْمَرْأَةِ he said, except if the woman تَتَخْرِجُ إِلَى السُّوقِ, except if she goes outside. If she goes outside. Naam. And Shaykh Al-Bani, he mentioned this as well. And that is what? That is a situation where the women, they will put their hair gather it from a direction and the like, and then put on their khimar. They will gather it in this manner, and then they will put on their khimar. Naam. The ulama, they mentioned that this is not permissible, right? And I want you to understand, and I want you to see what the Shaykh is mentioning on why to do this is not permissible, even if you to put a khimar on. So the sisters have to be very careful that even when they with their hairstyles, that even when they put on their khimar and they get dressed and that it should not be a hairstyle by way in which the hair is protruding from the khimar. Now, that the hair is protruding, and I don't mean like it's coming out, but I mean that there's a big mass of hair that can easily be seen and is easily identified that it's a mass of hair, right, that has been put together under the khimar, right? Whether it's a puff or whatever the case may be, it's not permissible to do this. Not permissible. And the reason why Shaykh Uthaymeen mentions, he says it's not permissible for her to go outside like this, فَإِنَّهُ فِي هَذِهِ الْحَالِ, because like this, inside this, like this, if she were to do this, even with a khimar on and that, he said, يَكُونُ مِنَ التَّبَرُّجِ. He said, then this will be a tabarruj. This will be her what? Displaying her adornments. This will be her displaying her adornments. You understand? Just like the women, those women who are kasiyat, adiyat, the women who they're covered, right? They got clothes on, but the clothes, the description of it is so tight or so see-through or what have you, that you can still see what's under it and make out the description of what is under it. So likewise, if a woman were to gather her hair in such a manner, and then she put the khimar on, and now she got this big thing sticking up from her khimar, and you sisters, you know better than me now, because this has been seen. You see women walking down the street and there's this big thing coming out of her head. You know her head is not deformed and is looking like that. You know that's what? That's a bunch of hair. That's a bunch of hair, either in a bun or I don't know what they call them, but you understand what I'm saying. They understand, it's understood that is hair. So for the onlooker, it gives a person an indication of what? Of her hair. How much hair she got, maybe the length of it, so on and so forth. Now it gives a description of her adornments. It gives a description of her adornments. And to openly display an adornment, this is a tabarruj. This is what? To display the adornments. Now, so even with a khimar on, right? Even with an abaya on, if she dresses like this and she got this big piece of hair sticking out from under her khimar, la yajuz, because this is showing people what she got. It's showing people what she got, or giving them an indication of what she got. It's giving them an indication of what's under it, and it's not permissible. The Shaykh, he says, لِأَنَّهُ سَيَكُونُ لَهُ عَلَامَةً مِنْ وَرَاءِ. He said because it would be like a sign from مِنْ وَرَاءِ الْعَبَايَةِ تَظْهَرُ نعم ويكون هذا من باب التبرج ومن أسباب الفتنة فلا يجوز. He said it will be a sign even from behind her abaya, even from behind her abaya, which will show what's under it. There will be an indication of what's under it. So this type of putting the hair together in a bun or like this, then it's not permissible. Even to go outside like this. Also from this standpoint is that what it will be tabarruj. It will be tabarruj, showing of the adornments. Why? Because it gives indication of what's under it. You understand? It gives indication of what's under it. So now a person, you see that big puff or whatever, and you see that big thing protruding from under the khimar. So what the first thing comes to the mind is, oh, she must have hair of this length or that length or around this length and this and that and that. So it gives them an indication. And this will be what? This will be from the causes of fitna. This will be a means, this will be a door, this will be a road to fitna, trials and tribulations. You understand? Trials and tribulations. Also, because it protrudes like that, then what? It is quite eye-catching. It's going to catch the eye, because it's not, every sister or every day you see somebody and they got a khimar and this big thing is protruding from under it. So of course, when a person sees that, it catches the eye like, whoa, what is that? You understand? And so this is going to open up the door for fitna. Now maybe some sick person is going to follow her inside of the store, follow her in the mall. Because at the corner of his eye, he seen this thing and caught his eye. He look over there, she got a khimar on, this big piece of hair, protruding from under it, because she got it put up in a bun or whatever. And now he said, I'm going to follow her. Now he follow her around the store. He want to try to gather the courage to talk to her or whatever, or the case may be, throw her a number or whatever. You know what the evil people they do. You understand? Or maybe he harass her. A person harass her, right? And so on and so forth. It could be a kafir, just want to harass her. Now she caught his eye because of the big ball of hair under her khimar, and now he want to follow her to harass her or whatever. You understand? In any event, this is not permissible, and it opens the door for so much trials and tribulations. It opens the door for so much fitna. It opens the door for so much problems, and so on and so forth. Now, so even from this standpoint, again, what is haram? It's haram. She can't do it. She can't do it. From this, it's haram. You understand? So, in general, the bun, let's go back now. If they put their hair inside of a bun and it's at the top of their head or the back of their head, then we see it is haram from the standpoint that it is imitation of the foul, despicable women. Imitation of the kuffar women. So it's haram from that standpoint. Also from the standpoint, it enters into the description that the Prophet ﷺ described those women who they're not going to go to Jannah and they're not going to smell the fragrance of Jannah. These women who their hairstyle will be like the hairstyle of the camels that lean, right? The camel who they hump, they lean, and it will, meaning the hair will resemble the hump of a camel that leans, right? These women who are clothed yet naked. So 2, because it enters into description of what is mentioned there in that hadith of being like the hump of the camel that leans. But also 3 is because it enters the description of what the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, that what? Clothed yet naked. That this is what? Tabarruj, because it gives indication of what's under it. So for this type of hairstyle, we already see 3 reasons that it's haram to put the hair in a bun, or to put the hair up inside those crazy hairstyles like they had inside the royal courts of the kuffar. Haram. And because it's showing what's under it, and that it's like the hump of the leaning hump of a camel. So it's haram. But That's as relates to the bun type of hairstyle, right? Now, what about the exceptions? You know, like Sheikh bin Baz, he mentioned it, but if she put a part in the middle of the head and she has the hair gathered together on each side, whatever, to get it out of her way, or whatever the case may be, right? Then it's okay. Or like Sheikh Uthaymeen, he mentions if she want to gather it together, and put it on her neck or whatever the case may be, or in close proximity to it, in the house, or because of a reason inside of the house, then it's okay. But that's only in the house. When she goes outside, she has to take this down, right? So that when she puts on her khimar, that bundle of hair does not protrude outside of the khimar. Because if it does, then she falls into what? Even though she can say, well, I escaped the bun that was mentioned. I escaped having my hair like the camels, right? The camel hump that means I escaped from this. But you may have escaped from this. Or she can even say, I escaped from imitating the kuffar, because it's not like how the kuffar women, they be having their hair and those type of styles. It's not like that. Okay, we give her that. We say, okay, you escaped from that too. However, she did not escape from a tabarruj. She did not escape the third, a tabarruj. A tabarruj, that she's displaying her adornments. She's displaying her adornments. So it is a must that the sisters, when they go outside, they put their hair inside of such a style that is not revealing, it's not revealing of what is under it. And she strives her best to do this. Now, of course, certain women, they may have more puffier hair and so on and so forth, so you still may see a general puff around the head and so on, but that doesn't really give indication of much. That doesn't give indication of much. And bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, this is what what enters into that which is apparently seen from it. That which is apparently seen from it. Because there's going to be always some limitations as relates to clothing and so on and so forth. Even a woman is fully clothed, even though she's fully clothed, with all of her clothes on, with her khimar and her abaya, her jilbab. Even with a jilbab, you can still see the general frame of a woman, meaning you can't see her curves and her shapes and this and that, but you can see something from it. So you can see, okay, she's a smaller woman, she's petite, or she's a woman who's more healthy, so on and so forth. You can still see the generality, but this is forgiven because you have no control over this. You have no control over this. So what I'm saying is that if there's something from no puff, no hair being gathered in any direction or whatever, but there's still something from that due to the thickness or the curliness of her hair and so on and so forth, then no problem. This is not what is being spoken about. But to take that type of hair and to put it in a bun, or to put it in that, like the bun that goes on the back and all that, then no, it's not permissible, because this will be what? Going beyond and describing that which is under it. This will enter into a tabarruj. So this has to be avoided. This has to be avoided at all cost. It has to be avoided at all cost. Na'am. And then the Shaykh, he goes on to go into another subject. I was hoping that we can get into it today. However, the topic and the discussion on the issue of the buns, it was longer than I had anticipated. So we're going to save the next topic until the next class, so as to not make it longer than what it already is. And again, I apologize if it is longer and have been longer than anticipated. I apologize for that. With that being said, نكتفي بهذا القدر. وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. وجزاكم الله خيرا.